Exchange, hosted by my man, Pop DiBiase, the primetime capper, and the Don of Cape Cod, Jeff Dawson.
All right, we are here, and it is time for the NFL Bet Exchange with none other than your man, Pop DiBiase, the primetime capper, and the one and only, the Don of Cape Cod himself, Mr. Jeff MMF Dawson. What's going on, man? How you doing, brother? How's everything going today?
Been a crazy week, but I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I got everything up. You know, things happen for a reason. One door closes, another one opens. So woke up this morning, my feet hit the ground. That means I got an opportunity to make a difference. 24 hours at that. So I'm here, blessed and honored as we dig into the AFC NFC West, Mr. Pops.
All right. It sounds fun to me. It sounds like a go to me. We got the NFC West. We got the AFC West. I'm going to do it a little different today. I know I said NFC West first because we're going to go to the NFC first today. We usually start in the AFC, but the NFC is just so just the JV right now. It's almost like a senior circuit and junior circuit with the NFL, both these conferences. But it goes like that. In the 90s, that's how the NFC used to be to the AFC, even though the AFC probably had the better quarterbacks when you looked at it, but the better teams, defensive players were in the NFC. So, you know, you have that working out for you and everything like that as well, too. But we have a team right now that we're going to talk about that everybody sees is probably the low-hanging fruit on the totem pole right now. And you know who that is. And that's going to be none other than the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona Cardinals are absolutely dreadful looking going into this season. You know, they have their quarterback is out for the year. They went 4-13 last season as well, too. They had a moment there where, you know, just nothing ever went right with their team from game one and beyond. And I felt like they just really had a real issue between head coach and quarterback. You know, they fell out of in love with each other because the only reason why Kyler Murray is the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals is because Cliff Kingsbury decided to take that job and then smashed his hand on the desk to bring in Kyler Murray because he said Kyler Murray was the best player in the draft and that this was the type of quarterback that could take Arizona to the next level. Well, we're sitting here now almost 5 years later, and yes, it was a good situation to start. But with the maturity of the quarterback not being the type of mature that you need your quarterback to be, everything is pretty much backfired with this team. And then it got to the point to where his teammates didn't even like him anymore, to where pretty much he got hurt. And Chandler Jones literally called this out weeks before his injury happened, and then it happened. So, Jeff, real quick, what are your thoughts on Arizona in 2022, and what are your thoughts on what they need to do moving forward for this season?
My thoughts aren't pretty, but you know, here's the funny story about this is I remember last year at this time, there was a team in Seattle that we're going to talk about that was projected the same way. Russ had left the building. There was a team in transition, a team that had a lot of first and second round picks, a lot of holes, incomes, you know, Geno, which we all laughed at. And then, you know, they were the most bet under in the NFL last year. And they got there over probably at week 6 or 7. They came out guns a-blazing, and the rest was history. This team, though, Arizona, a head coach that probably should have been fired last year, but they gave him an extension. They paid Kyler Murray, who wants to play Fortnite versus reading the playbook. A guy, as you said, and I think you hit it well, when he played and when was healthy, was dynamic. You know, they added D-Hop as Fitzgerald faded off into the sunset. A good defense, nicknamed Desert Swarm, but the pieces started to fall apart. This year, I don't expect Kyler Murray to play at all this year. I think they're definitely in full tank-a-palooza for Khalib or the quarterback from UNC, May. For fantasy purposes, James Conner's getting drafted. I think they're just going to run him into the ground. Rondell Moore, who's always injured. I've taken some late flyers on Michael Wilson, the wide receiver, who's shown some flashes in preseason, but there's not much to look forward to. But the funny thing is, one of the next teams that we're going to get to is also looking that bleak. So maybe one of them pops. I don't think it's the Cardinals. If I was a betting man, I would say they will have the worst record in the NFL and the number one pick. So Arizona, you are now on the clock.
Well, everybody's already handing them Caleb Williams and handing them Marvin Harrison Jr. So they just all of a sudden we skipped everything, and we pretty much have put them already as the number one team in the draft slot, which they did with Houston last year, and you saw what happened with that situation by the end of the year. You know what I mean?
That was Lovey's fault.
Because he's been coaching way too long, and he knew he was getting fired at the end of the day, and he didn't care because he's a winner. You know what I mean? And winners ain't gonna go out being losers. That's all it is. We did enough losing during the season. We're gonna win the game. I'm sorry. I'm not leaving the NFL as a loser. I think that's always the best FU to a team that's firing you. Get a win on your last game out. You know what I mean? And pretty much with this team right now, you can see that they are very in the right spot. Over under 4.5. Division championship is at 25-1. Probably the longest odds of any team to win their division in any of these divisions this year. They do have the lowest amount of wins this year as well, too. And I totally think that it's absolutely on the spot on and on the money because his team doesn't have much, and whatever they had, they traded away. So they're sitting in a situation now where they're a team that really does have to figure out exactly what their future is going to be. The Cardinals look exactly like they did when they moved to Phoenix back in 1988. They look just like that team again. And they look lost, and they look like, they're going back into who the Cardinals truly are. You know what I mean? Because they got a nice stadium, they got everything going, and they had a good facade for us. But now reality is snuck back in, and the Arizona Cardinals are who we thought they were. One of the more
Neil Lomax quarterbacking?
Yeah, one of the more irrelevant teams in the NFL. It's that simple. Can we go get some Rosenback going on? I love me some Rosenback. Number 3, Rosenback was nice. Remember him?
Well, we can go way back to Neil Lomax, or we can bring in Carson Palmer. I mean, we got a lot there. I mean, they brought over Dobbs, who is going to be their starting quarterback. So
Carson Palmer is a part of the good years. I'm talking about guys who had to play in 120 to 20-degree weather in September. Rosenback and Jake Plummer and DeBerg. And because DeBerg played for literally everybody. So with that though, I truly do feel like we don't really have to worry about the Cardinals surprising anybody this year. And I always love an underdog, but this team is the truest version of an underdog. But one thing I'm going to say before we move on, and you can jump in, you can elaborate on this as well too if you want. Week 1, they're one of the biggest dogs on the board. Do not let that fool you, because the team that they're giving all those points to is a team that pretty much looks like a team that's probably going to be finishing last place this year. So don't believe the hype. That's really a 50-50 game, and that might be one of your biggest scores on opening day. I know I'm giving away something a little bit way too early, because just looking at me like you're not even saving it for week 1. But I'll go ahead and re-enter that phase come week 1 anyway, so it doesn't matter to me at the end of the day. So that's something that you do need to look out for. It could be one of their wins of the season. You know what I mean? Because wins are going to be coming few and little this year.
We'll see if that number tips closer to 7. I don't think the Sharps are going to allow it. Yeah, it is a train wreck waiting to happen. I mean, there is a lot of hype with Howell, Dotson, and the rest of that crew. It's a number that's floating right around that 5.5 or 6. Everyone will have Washington in their suicide pool. Everyone will have them in money line parlays, in teasers. Just because we remember what we saw last. So again, as bad as Arizona is, there's always one or two of those week one upsets where the teams were just so bad in preseason, and then it's an entirely different team that shows up for week one. And when Kyler Murray and the boys were cooking with Crisco, they were an amazing team on the road. They were 7-1 that year on the road, and they were just but they were just ripping people's hearts out. They opened up in Tennessee, and then they won a couple other road games. That they owned Dallas and Dallas. I mean, but this is an entirely different team. Maybe Kingsbury doesn't make it to the bye week. I don't know, but I would be, if I'm Washington, I would be on upset alert on week one.
Yep. And we will see. We will absolutely see. So let's move forward because I think we spent a little bit too much time on the Cardinals, to be honest with you. Cardinals should have been about a 2-minute talk because we know exactly where this team is going, absolutely nowhere. So now it's time for me to talk about the local team over here, one of the local teams, and that's going to be the LA need to go back to Orange County until you want to become a good football team again, Rams. But they have the richest owner in sports, so it happens. You know what I mean? So you get to live in a great location, but you're playing real good Orange County football right now. So it would be much better if you went back over to the Big A. But you own the stadium, so you can do what you want. But this team was 5-12 last year. Very surprising of a Rams team. And you know what? The Rams were absolute struggle fest because at one point I think they were 4-2 to start the year off. They were kind of rolling the first 6 weeks of the season. They were back, they were looking like the defending champs. They were having some good moments and everything like that. And then boom, they just started being cooked week in and week out and wound up going 1-10 on the way out. And that was absolutely terrible, Jeff. Let's keep it real. That's absolutely pathetic for a team that's coming fresh off of a Super Bowl. But it was expected because Matt Stafford was your quarterback. Matt Stafford is an elderly person in the NFL now. He's a senior citizen. And he's a guy who's one of the biggest liabilities that you can have on any team in the NFL right now because he has a bad back. And I think he has a bad neck as well, too. Bad shoulder, bad leg. All these things do not fit a team that's trying to keep being a successful team. I feel like the Rams know they shot themselves in the foot when they traded Jared Goff because at the end of the day, Jared Goff would have won the Super Bowl with that same exact team that Matt Stafford did. And they probably would have never made the game that as close as Matt Stafford made that game. Because Matt Stafford, when you look at him historically, Matt Stafford is a great stat quarterback, but when it comes to actually being a winner, he's below average in reality. He had a great roster. Let's keep it real. You're going to have Von Miller, a future Hall of Famer. Believe it or not, even though he's a big diva and everything like that, OBJ is going to get consideration for the Hall of Fame. So those are two names that I'm throwing out there right now. Cooper Kupp had himself one of the more legendary seasons for a wide receiver when you did win that championship. So there was a lot of things that went correct. And of course, one of the best players to ever step on a football field, Aaron Donald. So you had a lot of things going in the right direction for your team. Then when everybody got hurt, and then you really saw the way that this roster set up because you spent so much money on all these aging players, it's came back to bite you in the butt because you gave up assets to get players that aren't even on the roster anymore. And this became a big burden on this team. Now they got a bunch of young puppies out there as their backups, and it just doesn't look good for the Rams moving forward. And then You have the opportunity to get yourself a really good future signal caller, and you decided to go get a guy who's probably going to be a offensive coordinator in the next 4 years in Stetson Bennett. You know what I mean? That's the equivalent of drafting the OC from the Chargers right now. Same type of situation. Guy was an awesome 8-year college quarterback and won big championship games and all that stuff. And now he can come over and be a great clipboard holder, but leading your team back to relevancy, that's not going to happen. So pretty much the Rams right now, I'm going to just go ahead and keep it real. They're cooked. Okay. And they are a team I feel like Kroenke ain't mad now because he got the Super Bowl ring and all that good stuff. And Denver kind of distracted him with winning the NBA Finals as well, too. And then that other team he has as well, too, the Avalanche, they win a title. And damn, even his lacrosse team won a title. So he got so many championships, it might block the view of the mediocrity that's going to be on the field with the Rams. But the Rams are his biggest prize. They are in his best market. And he's not going to be accepting just losing for the next 5 years. It's not going to happen. So I totally feel that right now, Sean McVay is not on the hot seat, but he'll soon be getting there if they come out struggling to start the season where they're getting blown out in games. And if they're trying and losing by a couple points, then it won't be that big of a deal because you understand what you have. But if they start getting blown out, he's going to start getting pressed by the owner. Jeff, what are your thoughts on the Rams? I know I said a lot, but go ahead.
You're only as good as the top. And go back to the Super Bowl. Yeah, you didn't mention a running back that I was dear to for a while in the fantasy game, Todd Gurley, who had the flashes for a while. It was the perfect storm for them. And then the hangover. Now, after that year, though, Sean McVay had an opportunity to jump ship and go to Amazon for $18 million a year and get paid $1 million a year to do the Thursday night games. Was Stafford going to retire? Was Donald going to retire? And, they brought the band back. Von Miller leaves, goes to Buffalo. They sold off some of the pieces. And it was a year in disarray. And if you looked at them this preseason, it's just looks like they're playing it back. And this is a team that could probably get off to a slow start and then maybe sell off whatever pieces they do have left. I don't think McVay's heart's in it. I don't think Stafford's heart's in it. The revolving door of Cam Akers, I mean, they traded him. He comes back. Is Cooper Kupp fully healthy? That's the only player technically for high stakes or fantasy purposes going in the first round. A couple other guys, Van Jefferson and a few others that are getting drafted. But my point is their defense is putrid. They'll be just sticking their head above the Arizona Cardinals, I think. That's why the West is comical this year because it is a two-man race. But, and it's a big but, if we do get some Geno regression, it could be something where the Niners run away and hide, and they got quarterback issues too. But that 5-12 that they had last year, I can't see them winning 6 or 7 games this year either. So another bad year, and it will be interesting to see what McVay does. I think this will be Stafford's last year, and I don't even think Stafford makes it through the full year, Pups.
Yeah, I think that Stafford honestly is absolutely cooked. And when you look at what their odds are going into this year, 10-1, over under 6.5, there's not expectations for the Rams this year. The expectation is to be a bad team this year, and you're not going to have a first rounder next year again. So you're going to be kind of stuck. So if you can figure out a way to get the assets that you need during the season, because that's the type of team the Rams have to become this year. They have to look at who they have at the top of the board that they can move so they can get some assets back. I know Aaron Donald's untradeable, and I know possibly Stafford's untradeable because nobody wants him. But the thing is, I know that you got guys like Cam Akers who can bring you some value. You got a guy like You got a guy like Cooper Kupp. I know it sounds crazy now, but he can bring you some value as well too. Cooper Kupp is a guy that it could be on the twilight of his career, but nobody knows that yet. And people will still be in the Cooper Kupp business if he does become available sometime mid-season. So that's something that they could work on to try to get themselves back into the first round to possibly get that quarterback. But I say if you still have a second round pick, you still got the possibility of still getting yourself a pretty good quarterback, because this is a very deep quarterback class going into this year's draft. So you don't have to worry about getting the first round golden boy. You can wind up getting yourself the Derek Carrs, Russell Wilsons in the second, third round, guys that are going to be good starters for you moving forward. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of, and then the Rams do have the look of a team that can actually go ahead and have a key free agent quarterback come into their team, because it's Los Angeles. It's SoFi Stadium. It's an attractive situation. And, you know, McVay is seen as an offensive savant somewhat. So pretty much that he can bring in anybody he wants if they want to buy into the Rams program. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. But 10-1, some nice odds on a team that is 2 years removed from a Super Bowl. And really, we don't know who the hell they're going to be. Like, really, we don't. You know what I mean? But we got a good idea. And if I think like they're going to be cooked, then I think I'm on to something. Because usually when I say an LA team is going to be bad, they're going to be bad. I've never not been wrong about that. And that's happened with my Lakers, Clippers. So, well, Clippers ain't my Clippers, but you know what I mean, though, Jeff. So it is what it is at the end of the day. But all in all, that's what we do have. And so let's move forward and talk about a team that is a little bit more relevant. And that's going to be the San Francisco 49ers, 13-4, 2022 season. And they did it with 3 quarterbacks. You know, they started with Trey Lance, then they went back to Jimmy G, and then they went and had Mr. Irrelevant, who's just supposed to be a good bullpen, like middle relief. He was supposed to be a good babysitter, and he wound up getting himself the job because he's the guy that the coach can control. Very simple. And that's why he's the quarterback, because Kyle Shanahan wants to be the starting quarterback of the team, but he can't. So he's going to go ahead and put the controllers on and put Brock Purdy in there as the starting quarterback. Trey Lance is an ad-libber, and that was something that was killing Shanahan. Shanahan wants everything to go the way that he set it up in the way he structured it, because he's the greatest offensive mind to ever step onto a sideline, you know, because he is Mike Shanahan's son. So, you know, I'm going to let Jeff go ahead and kick this one off, because I know I've been talking a lot with the first two. So I'm going to let Jeff go ahead and kick off the 49ers for us real quick and see how it goes. Because, you know, 49er fans, they're watching the screen now like, you better not say anything bad or I'm about to be in them comments. So I'm going to let Jeff start it off first, because I'm probably going to have some choice words for them. Maybe.
No, it's a team that made it to the championship last year, a team that had no quarterback after the first possession. And at one point, McCaffrey at quarterback. Off-season, tried to trade Trey and then finally get him to trade it to Dallas. A preseason where Sam Darnold looked okay. So he is the backup to Brock Purdy, who I think came in with 7-0 regular season, and including a playoff win, and then obviously getting taken off the field in Philly, 31-7, I think, final there. On paper, the team to beat in the West. On paper, the number 2 team in the NFC behind Philly. You know, again, when I talk fantasy, I ask this question. I don't even have the answer. When was the last time a starting running back started the season for San Fran and finished the season? And they, you know, Shanahan goes through quarterbacks and goes through running backs like we do paper towels here. So offensively, loaded: Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell. Defense strong with Bozer and company. There's nothing you don't like about this team. They are going to go as far as their quarterback and McCaffrey and their defense. I think they win this division hands down. I'm expecting a little regression in Seattle. We'll talk about that next. But overall, Pops, I could see this team 13-4 is definitely in reach. 12-5. They open up in Pittsburgh, 3.5-point favorites. That's going to be a great game, opening week. But overall, I like everything about this team. Injuries will be the key step for these guys. If they stay healthy, they're going to be the team to beat in the NFC, Pops.
Well, I think that you got a good point with that, Jeff. I'm gonna be dead honest with you. I think that is a good point right there that you do bring up, and I truly do feel that this team will possibly be a team that you will be able to circle as the NFC representative and be confident about it, right? But I'm not saying they're gonna get to the Super Bowl, but I'm just saying that you're gonna be confident about that. But I truly do feel that this season is going to be a very overhyped season for the 49ers. I feel like there's going to be too much pressure on this team. They're treating Brock Purdy like he's Steve Young, Joe Montana reborn, and he could be, and it's more like Steve Bono to me. You know what I mean? Where's Steve Bono's number? Steve Bono had a lot of us fooled that he was a really good quarterback, and he got to Kansas City, and everybody saw that he was just an average quarterback. And I truly feel that the arm is cooked when it comes to Purdy because you heard no good things about what Purdy was doing in camp. Pick, getting sacked, being indecisive, being a little bit too cute because now the pressure is on. You're not the third string quarterback anymore. You're not working on the side and hoping that some offensive coordinator sees you busting out, but doing a Tom Brady. Now you got to perform like Brady. Those 6 games that you were looking like the next great San Francisco quarterback, the competition wasn't up to par. They were playing against teams that were not going to the playoffs, who were drafting in the top 10. Let's keep it real. Come on, let's keep it real. The best game he did have was beating Seattle in Seattle. I'll give him that. But that was more of the defense. See, that's where San Francisco is a really great team at, is because it's about their team. So really, you're just a plug-in player. But when you're a plug-in player, this is a danger zone as well, too, because you don't have those elements that really keep people confident because everything's almost robotic. And I know I got chastised about this from the Philly folks because I was talking about people being robotic and their coach, everybody's some good robots. But that team is a freaky good team. Let's keep it real. Yes, the Eagles are definitely the best on both sides when it comes to the trenches. But they do have a control freak as their coach. San Francisco has a control freak as their coach. And that's why, they look really good, but when they look really bad, they look really bad at the same time too. So I truly do feel that San Francisco does check off all the boxes, but they're going to be one of the more overrated teams in the league as well too, because they don't have a top 5 quarterback. They have a good game manager. But I truly do feel, and I know I'm probably going to catch some flack for this, but I thought signing Sam Darnold was genius because at the end of the day, they know that they got themselves a efficient backup just in case this Purdy situation doesn't work out. And that's why Trey Lance had to go, because Sam Darnold was a top 5 pick too. And Sam Darnold really checks off all the boxes to be a very efficient quarterback for San Francisco because he went to USC. He's a Trojan. He's a top pick. He played on some really bad teams before he got here, but managed to still be a decent quarterback at the same time too. I'm smelling Jim Plunkett vibes here. And I feel like you have a guy with a cooked arm and Purdy who's not going to be able to get the ball 50, 60, 70 yards downfield. Everything is going to be about short passing game, medium passing game. And that might not be a recipe for winning for San Francisco if they know what's coming. With Sam Darnold, you get so many different elements at the quarterback position, and the guy is a quarterback. That's a true quarterback, and he had the hype coming into the league to be a top 10 quarterback for his future prediction. So now he's with a top 5 team. So everything kind of makes some sense right now for him to have one of the greatest comebacks in NFL history when it comes to the quarterback position, because I think he's built to actually lead this team to where they truly want to go. Purdy's just a good soldier. It's a difference in that. Sam Darnold's a good soldier, but he can ad lib as well, too. And this is going to work very well for the 49ers moving forward, in my opinion, if they go to that angle. But I don't like the minus 165 to win the division, though. I'll keep it real.
You brought up some good points about Darnold, and I was reminiscent. I consider Purdy is a good game manager. That's what Shanahan wants. But if he's got to, release the hounds, we could see Sam Darnold almost a little Geno Smith this year. No expectations. He comes in after Purdy, and he just takes this, offense to another level. When you have CMC, when you have Mitchell, when you have Debo that can run, but you talked about the short passes. That's what made the 49ers famous in the 80s and 90s. It was, Jerry Rice. It was, I'm drawing blanks. Terrell Owens, 5, 10, 15-yard slants taking it to the house. The J.J. Taylors, the J.J. Stokes of the world. And Darnold will bring another level to being able to stretch the field to Ayuk, to the mailbox, to Kittle if he stays healthy. I didn't even mention George Kittle, by the way, who's sliding in the fantasy drafts because we just don't know how healthy he is and how healthy he will be, who's one of the better tight ends when healthy. So I like your idea on Darnold. The minus 165, a little chalky, but when you're looking at this division and you X out the Rams and you X out the Cardinals, I think I'd still rest my hat here, but you can get plus money when we're going next with Seattle.
All right. So we gonna go over here and talk about Seattle, and I can't wait to talk about Seattle because something about Seattle, Jeff, in my opinion, this year. It's just something about this team. And let's go ahead and get into it. Now, Seattle last season, they went 9-8. They were able to creep into the playoffs, get that 7th seed, and had to play against arch rival San Francisco. San Francisco swept them last year. Very rare San Francisco sweep Seattle during the season, and they swept them 3-0. And if anybody would have other than the Eagles, gave San Francisco a real run for their money, it was the Seahawks. And it just was, when you look at it, the 49ers went through some tough games to get to that beat down by the Eagles. They had to go through Seattle, who was ascending up-and-coming team, and then pretty much the second best team in the NFL and the Cowboy in the NFC. They had to beat them in the next round. So, it was a very trying time because they actually went against tougher and got absolutely bulldozed by the Eagles. But let me stay on topic with Seattle. Seattle, like you said, Jeff, had no expectations. Everybody had Seattle as a bad team. And then about week 2 or 3, I caught on to it. I said, they're not going to be a bad team because Geno has always been a serviceable backup for Russell Wilson. This is why they didn't go get a backup. This is why they didn't go draft a rookie. This is why they didn't need to do that, because there wasn't any point to have a guy come in here and learn on the job when I already have a quarterback that knows what he's doing. Yeah, you look at him and say, okay, he's a flop. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. You know what I mean? And he's a guy that, pretty much you look at him and you say, yeah, he's a flop. He really did not play up to what we wanted him to be. But I never blame Geno for that. I always blame Rex Ryan for that, Jeff, because Rex Ryan was the goofball that drafted him in the second round because he wanted to go ahead and be cute and piss off his starting quarterback, Mark Sanchez, and literally ruined the whole team, and then ruined his coaching career at the same time too. So that was more of a coach having a vendetta, him and the GM having a vendetta with a player and trying to teach lessons. And what happened was everybody ruined their careers somewhat. You know what I mean? And now, and Gino had to be in the middle of that. And they had this pressure on Gino that he was going to be the New York savior. And it's not Gino's fault. It's New York's fault because they have their expectations are just too damn high. That's what it is at the end of the day. And, these guys are a team that you truly say to yourself, hey, they got the weapons. It don't matter what San Francisco thinks they have on the offensive side. When you look at offenses in this division and in this conference, Seattle's offense really is a top 3 situation, in my opinion. And I feel like you got a above average quarterback in Geno because his mental, his mind, what he knows how to do. He knows how to play the quarterback position. He knows how to be successful in this league. Then you got a good 3-headed monster in the backfield with the running game. You're going to be able to keep guys fresh in that situation. But then when you look at that wide receiver core, Jeff, you just say to yourself, exciting. You got Lockett, you got DK Metcalf, and JSN looks like he's a Pro Bowler this year. And then everybody doesn't mention this, but Noah Fant is one of the better big man tight ends in the NFL as well too. I had him on my fantasy squad last year. He's a bench guy, but he came through pretty good for us in certain spots when I needed him to. So, you have really good players on that side, but the main thing that gets me really excited about Seattle is this: Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner is back on the team as the heart and soul of the defense, and then the Legion of Boom affect his return back to Seattle. They got Witherspoon, the number one, as the first cornerback off the board. Then you get JSN, first wide receiver off the board. That should tell you alone that they've been doing a hell of a job in the scouting department for Seattle, and Seattle has built this team up to be a great offensive team because they know San Francisco has built themselves to be a great defensive team. But they got to have an offense that can really attack this defense because then they are at an advantage because when it really comes down to if their defense can step up better against the offense, their defense will be much better against San Francisco's offense than San Francisco defense is going to be against their offense if everything clicks. So I know that was a lot, but if everything clicks, then they should be good. Jeff, what are your subtle thoughts on this? And when we look at the situation, you see the over-under 8.5 going into this year, and then a division championship of plus 230. What are your thoughts on that, and what are your thoughts on Seattle moving forward?
I mean, the 8.5 again. They finished 9-8. It's in a division where you're supposed to go 2-0 against the Rams. You're supposed to go 2-0 against Arizona. They open up against the Rams. That's another one of those potential upset specials. I think the Seattle's about 5.5, 6-point favorites there. Again, if you're not going to take the Niners, then the plus 230 obviously is very appetizing because I do expect either the Niners or Seattle to win the division. Now, I am high on certain positions in fantasy, especially. Kenneth Walker got dinged up in preseason. Same with Charbonneau from UCLA. Charbonneau, since getting injured, has looked fabulous. So I like the 2-headed monster there. Obviously, DK and Lockett in Jigba, fractured wrist or something, out at practice with a cast on. My gut tells me, this is just my opinion, he misses game 1. He will be getting closer in game 2. He will start game 3. Now, the problem with that is, if I remember correctly, Seattle's bye week is week 5. So if there are any setbacks, you can hold them out the first month, including the bye week, and get them ready for game 5. I do love the offense. Now, there is a part of me that does think there could be some Geno regression. He came on the scene last year, and for fantasy purposes and regular NFL purposes, comeback player of the year, something no one thought he would do, an amazing year. The Legion of Boom, Bobby Wagner, all their first-round picks hit. I've been picking them up as a defense. If I don't get a couple of the elite defenses, I'm just leaning on Seattle, especially with the start of their schedule this year. I think they go over the 8.5. I can see a 10-7 here all day with maybe the 49ers, 11-6, 12-5. I got them second in this division, Pops. I like a lot of them. Pete Carroll just keeps on marching, and it's going to be definitely a fun team to watch, Pups.
All right. Well, I'm going to finish with this when it comes down to Seattle. And I feel like Seattle, in all honesty, Seattle is going to be a team that's going to be really good this year because they still have the best coach in the division. I don't care what anybody says. Pete Carroll is a guy who can really coach up any type of roster. And it was proven last year. You give Shanahan that roster, he goes 6-11. You give McVay that roster, he goes 4-13. You give Kingsbury that roster, they probably won 2 games. But you give Pete Carroll that roster, Pete Carroll will figure out a way to be either in the playoffs or at the door of the playoffs. And that's been his whole tenure in Seattle. You know what I mean? There's only been about 1 or 2 seasons where Seattle, over the last 25 years, where Seattle was really a putrid, awful team. And that just goes to show you the consistency of Pete Carroll ever since the days of when he was with your Patriots. when
eating bologna sandwiches. Bob Kraft just bought the team, and he wanted the team. I think it was during OTAs of practice. They wanted to feed him bologna sandwiches, and Pete Carroll was just like, "What are you doing?" Well, we're serving him bologna sandwiches. And Pete goes, "Not on my watch, you want."
Right. And you see, and now Bob Kraft, he acts like he's the Ritz Carlton owners. Oh, we got everything so fancy for our team. And blah, 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 blah. But you know what? You want to treat Pete Carroll like, just a whatever coach. But Parcells came in there and you want to spoil people. Differences, what I mean, about who you is on that food chain. You know how it goes, Jeff. You know how it goes.
If it wasn't for Pete Carroll and Bill Parcells, there would have been no Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. So, and that's the one thing around here locally. Bill doesn't get enough credit. They want to just make sure this is Bill getting all the elite props and everything with Tom, but it was Bill Parcells that started the process.
Right. And if you know football, if you've been around for the last 50 years and know football, that's not even an argument right there. Who started the dynasty? It wasn't, everything started with that first Super Bowl against Green Bay. It didn't start when, we had that miracle game against the Rams. It started in that situation right there. But with that, we're going to go ahead and take our first commercial break. And I really, truly do like what I see here. So we will be back, and it's AFC West time. That's all I can say. It's time to talk about the AFC West. And you guys pretty much stay right where you're at, and we'll be right back to you with the NFL Bet Exchange.
Good News Only Racing Club, led by the legendary Doug O'Neill, the trainer of 2 Kentucky Derby winners, and I'll have another, and Nyquist.